Hey everyone, welcome back to Bitcoin Banter. I've got Tony with me as always, and a special guest today, Mr. Bob Dixon, a client of ours, a teacher, and we're going to want to hear a little bit about that. But Bob and I were fortunate to meet up at the Bitcoin conference this past week in Nashville and chat for a good while. And we thought it'd be fun to have someone on to chime in on some of the banter and then to share their conference experiences as well. If you can hear it in my voice, I'm a little under the weather today, so apologize if I'm coughing or hacking up a lung here in advance. But Bob, welcome. Thanks for making time.
Good to have you. Thank
All
you. Appreciate
righty.
it.
So I'm gonna share my screen real quick. So very first, we're just gonna hit two news points. So one is sort of the elephant in the room that I think all Bitcoiners have been talking about for a long time. So I've been rounding up to 35 trillion in debt for a long time. So I'm finally right when I say that we're 35 trillion in debt, another 150 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Oh, and by the way, it appears that maybe the U.S. is to stiff Trump after his speech of keeping that as a stockpile, potentially in the process of selling $2 billion in Bitcoin. So Bob, you teach business and investing. I'm curious, first of all, do you dive into like the macro at all, talk about debt and national debt in your classes at all, or have any initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, totally. In fact, if you haven't done it before, I highly recommend everybody go and look at the nationaldebt.org. It's like a little website that just the national debt tracker. It's live. It's just ticking away. And what's cool about that is you can just hover over any of the little metrics there, and it'll tell you what that is, and then it'll give you ratios. So one of the first things I started doing is I just show, okay, guys, here's our national debt, and here's our unfunded liabilities, and let's add those together, and then over here, let's just look at money supply. Let's look at M2 money supply, and just put two bar graphs next to each other, and one's a lot bigger than the other one. So what if we took all the money and moved it out here and paid off as much debt as that money could pay off? See how much more is left. Well, where are we going to get that money to pay that money off? Well, we're going to have to borrow that money. Do you guys see the irony of that, the impossibility of borrowing to pay off your debt? And yeah, that's actually one of the places we start.
Does that seem to resonate pretty well? You said 17, 8-year-olds that you're tending to teach. Does that do they kind of recognize, oh, because for a long time for me, I recognized sort of the impossibility. I don't think I understood the implications though of the money printing more debt, basically using a new credit card to pay off old credit card debt and then just continuing that process. You feel like your students begin to come around to this impossibility and eventually, the bill comes due and you pay a price for it.
Yeah, totally. And it's I'll just sort of slip it in there kind of quickly at first, but little by little I'll incorporate some object lessons, and we'll just play a little game where you run out of marbles or whatever, and the light slowly dawns. Oh, we really are functioning in a broken system. I actually have to kind of watch out though. It could be pretty depressing. And, I try to really just emphasize, hey, I'm not trying to depress you, but I don't know if I'm being a good teacher, if I'm, you know, lying to you or covering up truths that I understand. So let's face it for what it is, and then let's figure out where to go. And I just think because there's Bitcoin now, that's just not as much of a depressing conversation to talk about, right?
Yeah. Tony?
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is a depressing topic. I mean, fortunately, kids, that are in schools now, at least some of them have the opportunity to be told, what's the truth and what's the lie. When I was in school, nobody told me anything. I was fed the same BS that almost everyone else is fed since the day they were born. And so to be confronted, with an opportunity to unlearn this and be set on the right path is a blessing for sure. I wish I could go back in time and, be taught, the Bitcoin way. Way back then, it would have changed a lot of outcomes in my life. The debt is unsustainable. It's clear as day, and as Greg Foss posted, like you're winning a Guinness World Record here with the debt. So what are you doing trying to sell $2 billion worth of Bitcoin? Like, what are you trying to do? These immature games, this clown show that's going on. It's just hilarious at this point. Like, you couldn't make a movie this funny if you wanted to. So spreading the education is a must. I mean, we do it, guys like Bob, you're doing, God's work. I mean, passing on the intel, to as many folks as humanly possible, and hopefully in a way that resonates with them, that, that it cements properly in their heads, and then they can take it and, live by this new information.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's taken to this point, but it seems as though the lie has become so big, it's
Mm.
it's in plain sight now for more to see. And Bob, I know you teach at a private school, so you probably have a bit more latitude in terms of crafting your curriculum. I think you said you more or less get to make your curriculum. And I know a lot of people have two hands tied behind their back when it comes to curriculum and what they're really able to focus on. But there are a lot of economics classes, going on in high schools around the country, not enough, and probably mostly Keynesian, but it's an opportunity that I think a lot of people are going to have over the next, 5 or 10 years to bring light to this. Unfortunately, we don't know how long the can is kicked down the road, and we might be facing a sovereign debt crisis sooner than later. Hopefully though, this is like an opportunity for kids to come home to their parents and say, "Hey, here's what I'm learning about." And the kid probably doesn't have a lot of disposable income to put into Bitcoin, but to maybe, hey, like if you're trying to leave a legacy, if you're trying to leave generational wealth, I mean, there are no guarantees in the fiat system. Have you looked at this thing called Bitcoin? So I'm hopeful maybe that we get more people into the lifeboats in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think recently it's become easier to speak to US students because they've actually felt themselves the impact of inflation. 4 or 5 years ago, they just kind of looked at me like, "Ah, what?" But recently they've all actually, they've got their little discretionary spending money, and they're going and trying to fill their bellies at a teenage level that their parents maybe don't feed them, and all of a sudden they're going and they can't afford their food that they wanted to buy before. So it helped. In some ways, that's helped to have inflation show up in their pricing.
Yeah, definitely. All righty, we got one more news story. So this is something I just heard about yesterday. Really don't know all the details, but this is more, I think, just an opportunity for us to talk a little bit about vigilance as Bitcoiners. So supposedly in Kiev, Ukraine, a 29-year-old Bitcoiner was robbed and murdered. He was forced into a car. They took the keys to his Bitcoin, about $200,000 worth. And I think this is something we actually, Bob, I don't know if you saw it a couple weeks ago. We had like this episode of Bitcoin Banter. It was sort of the ultimate self-protection episode. We talked about digital protection and physical protection, but it felt to me, and we'll talk about this in a minute, it felt to me like this Bitcoin conference that we were at was something of a turning point. The ETFs have been online. We've heard about institutional money maybe gradually coming in, but the price is still kind of hung out in that 60 something $1,000 range. And it kind of feels like people are becoming more aware as more KYC exchanges. And I mean, you're subject to hacks all across this Bitcoin ecosystem within the KYC sphere. And it's becoming more and more likely someone's going to find out not maybe how much Bitcoin you have, but you have Bitcoin. Where do you live? What city are you in? And it's something we all need to be thinking about. So, Tony, I'll let you take this one first, just initial reactions.
Yeah, of course, man. This is very upsetting to read, that somebody lost his life over something like this. Physical security should definitely be something on everybody's mind, not just if you're holding Bitcoin, but just in general. If you're wealthy, well, for one, you don't want to be flaunting it. So we don't really know the details behind this guy's story, who he is, what he was doing to attract some sort of attention to himself. But based on the article, it doesn't seem random. It seems like this guy, was known to these people, and they focused on him specifically, and unfortunately he lost his life over it. But to your point about this whole KYC thing, a lot of people are realizing, that this is now all of a sudden, a potential problem. It's a danger, because for the first time in history, you have an asset that's insanely valuable like Bitcoin that we've never seen before, and all of a sudden it's going to start catching the attention of a lot more people that don't have it, and that all of a sudden want it, right? So because of its value, they are likely to go to any extreme, depending on who they are, to get a hold of it. And so the easiest targets for all of these things are usually centralized institutions that they know may not have the best security protocols in place to protect that money, and that's the first place they attempt to hack. Also, at the same time, you can't just assume that these attacks will happen from external factors. How do you know that people within these organizations don't go rogue, or that actually sell out that information to external parties? That happens all the time as well. All you need to do is pay off some desperate employee at one of these institutions, and it's game over. But the customer, they have to deal with that problem. So this illusion of being safe just because it's regulated, that's a complete fabrication. That's a lie. In fact, now it's more dangerous than ever, and it could potentially paint a target on everyone. So how do we deal with it? Well, I mean, there's no off-the-shelf copy-paste solution for this. It's there's a lot of creativity involved in all of this. For one, don't attract attention to yourself. Two, move to safer jurisdictions. I mean, that's really a big one that I find a lot of people hesitate because it's such a big move, right? But if things are going horribly bad for you, in the country that you are, whether it's the government policies or whether it's just the situation, economic situation has turned hostile because things are so dire, you don't want to stay there. But you want to be able to plan this before you're forced to plan this. Like, you don't want to wait until all hell breaks loose to leave, because maybe you won't be able to at that point, or perhaps it'll be dangerous for you to do so, because then you'll attract the attention to yourself even more so.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, this is the realities of the world that we live in now. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are solutions, but we have to plan ahead and take proper decisions for it.
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, what a shame. What a tragedy. And I guess I would just say, with my role teaching students, I've seen us go through many, many years of forfeiting our privacy and forfeiting, the photo generation, taking a picture of everywhere you go, posting it. Look at me, I'm here. Look at me, I'm there. And just this notion of keeping things private, that need to stay private, not drawing attention to yourself unnecessarily. I think it's generally something that needs to become taught again. For students, there's a wide range of things that, trouble kids can get into when they're not thinking about themselves and their privacy. But I just think, the term situational awareness is just another one that comes to mind. Like, where am I? Who am I, like, in some hostile environment? Well, then I'm probably going to want to really keep a lid on, my assets and what I am working with there financially. Probably not going to be, walking around in my big bright orange Bitcoin t-shirt, stuff like that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's such a tragedy. And there is something though, if you're gonna sort of be your own bank and be sovereign, and Bitcoin is a bearer asset, then certainly we need to think through, right, with the Bitcoin way and the services provided, how do we do our best to limit exposure and opportunities for bad actors to take advantage of us. Can't can't be
Absolutely.
naive in this world. A lot of people want to stay naive, want to trust everybody, and that's just not reality.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I think it's time for a lot of people to wake up. I'll share these sorts of tragedies with my wife and she's like, why are you telling me this? This is not helping my anxiety. And I'm like, because I need you to be aware. I need you to know. Like I need you to realize there was a stabbing of like 11 people were injured in the stabbing in the UK yesterday. It was a bunch of little girls at like a Taylor Swift themed dance class and an illegal migrant walked in and killed two and injured 11, I think I saw. So it's a scary place and we aren't doing ourselves any favors as a society. And it's just important to, I think situational awareness is a great way to frame it. Whether you're just going to the store, hanging out at your house, you just got to know what's going on, know who's there, and keep a low profile, particularly as a Bitcoiner. So well said. Hey there, just a really quick break from Bitcoin Banter and we'll be right back. Wanted to remind you that we, the Bitcoin Way, are the leaders in achieving self sovereignty. Whether it's self custodying your Bitcoin properly and securely, protecting your online life and keeping it private, or even coming up with a plan B option in the event you would need to move yourself or your family elsewhere. Go to thebitcoinway.com/podcast to schedule a few minutes to learn more from a member of our team. We hope to see you soon. So Bob, let's just talk about the Bitcoin conference for a couple of minutes. Tell us a little bit about your experience, what you did, if you had fun, if you felt like it was a fruitful week.
Yeah, I had a great time in ways I didn't expect, and maybe in ways I was expecting. Things weren't quite what I thought they'd be, but so I actually went to a couple of conferences prior to the main conference. The first one was Thank God for Bitcoin, and the second one was Meet Premier Bitcoin. And one of those is goal is to bring Bitcoin education into the world of pastors and Christians, just worldwide missionaries, etc. Um, and then the other one is kind of an independent. Most of your listeners probably heard of these guys out of Salvador, an independent Bitcoin education group trying to teach Bitcoin to students all throughout the world, really. Um, those two were smaller, more intimate venues, intimate settings. I was able to connect with people fairly easily. Right. Then you go to the big conference, and what you realize is, oh, this is sort of industrial scale. Like, you get a feel for like real money's involved here. Real people's lives are, this is their living. The Bitcoin mining industry is there in force, and you get a grasp of, okay, this is actually big and getting bigger, and real dollars are at play here. And there's obviously a lot more people, a lot more crowds. The stages with the different hubbub in the non not the main stage, but the small stage, it's just going right there, and you got to kind of like look at your schedule and like, who do I want to hear, and get yourself over there. But yeah, that I thought that was interesting. I just a shout out to the Bitcoin Way. Uh, the one thing that I really enjoyed, Michael, was I get a text from the Bitcoin Way just saying, hey, like if anybody's here wants to hang out, I'll be out by the Bitcoin sign wearing my backwards hat. And so I just strolled out there, and that's how we got to meet Michael. And I just thought that was perfect, because I just kind of I'm just there by myself wandering around, and what you realize is yeah, Bitcoin is money, and yeah, it's technology and all these things, but at least for me anyway, it's also about connecting with human beings in physical spaces, not just cyber spaces. And so it was cool just to kind of come out there and get to know you guys. And I really appreciated you providing that way to make connections versus just sort of wander around, you know, randomly hoping somebody, started getting into a conversation with you. So thanks for being intentional about that. That actually made it great. And then the big speakers, you've heard Sailor a lot on podcasts. It's fun to see him live, but I think who I hadn't really heard speak before. Two main guys, Snowden and RFK were sort of back to back there, and both of those guys struck me as profoundly literate and articulate about their particular focuses. Obviously, RFK trying to get elected, Snowden more just trying to send a warning signal to the world about the direction we're going with all of this, um, all of this surveillance and sort of governmental uh, sort of overreach. So I think those two guys, of all the speeches I heard, and all, I think they left me the most to sort of think about. Yeah, so I think those are my initial thoughts. What did
Yeah.
you think?
So I had a great time, and yeah, I agree with you because I wasn't there with anyone in particular. We had one other guy from the Bitcoin way, but we were kind of going our different directions. We had different level passes, so there were times that we couldn't be together. But yeah, I think Snowden and RFK were two of the most interesting. I thought Saylor's speech, it was really cool to see him in person, but I thought his speech was one of his better ones. It was one that I felt like accessible that I could send to I sent it to my dad. I was like, hey, I think you need to listen to this. He's I'd say a half Bitcoiner. Like he's buying some Bitcoin, but he's not like, watching podcasts or anything. But I was like, you need to watch this. The Snowden RFK thing that was interesting was I thought they were two of the best, but it was such a contrast. Like it was
Yeah.
a warning, like, black pill sort of speech from Snowden, but thoughtful and certainly insightful. And then RFK got up there and just, I think, crushed like the hope, crushed it with the hope of what Bitcoin is and can be, and his plan for a Bitcoin reserve and all of those good things. So it was sort of an interesting, like, you get to the end of Snowden's speech and you're feeling like, an inch tall, like, oh man, we're in trouble. And then RFK comes out and your hope is renewed. But yeah, Bob, I mean, I think you and I probably talked for what, 45 minutes or an hour. We got to spend a good bit of time together, and it's so refreshing. Like I spend most of my days surrounded by people who share values that are similar to mine, but not interests, I guess is maybe a way of framing it. And so to be able to just start talking about all of these peoples and podcasts and concepts with just about anyone, you're not going to offend anyone by being a libertarian or skeptical of the state or anything like that, when I get a lot of, weird looks and eye rolls if I bring that stuff up in my everyday life. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. But yeah, it's I got my ticket for next year already. Try snagging one while it was a bit cheaper, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think just in general, whenever whenever we can connect with people and sort of get that uh it's not like I need any sort of reassurance that I'm not crazy. I understand, like I understand we all have that little I think I'm thinking about this right. But no, it is the learning curve and the ability to connect is greatly accelerated with all that you have in common when you meet and I think there's a quote C.S. Lewis said, you don't make your friends, you find your friends. And I think that really applies in a lot of Bitcoin communities. I was actually it was sort of interesting to hear from all the speakers and sort of see all the people that were rolling in there. We're definitely not all the same, right? There's a
Yeah.
there's a wide variety of spectrums and thoughts and beliefs. So I kind of like that too. It made me nervous if everybody was in there, thinking the same exact thoughts on everything. Anyway,
Yeah, there's definitely a like a stereotype of what Bitcoiners are, and I think, 7 out of 10 times that's kind of the type of person you meet. I mean, they're meat eaters, they're libertarians, free Ross, anti-state type people. But then you've got, folks like Gladstein, Alex Gladstein, who's doing some amazing work for the Human Rights Foundation, and you've got finance minds and technologists and just so many different people with different backgrounds. It's always a blast to hear new perspectives. So yeah, I
yeah.
couldn't agree more.
Gladstein and Gladstein and Senator Lummis were also super impressive too.
Yep. Yeah. Senator Lummis is doing some great things. We need more like her.
The tides are turning finally.
I know we are, but that's what I was saying. I feel like it feels to me like this. I was listening to a podcast this morning actually. I can't remember. I think it was Rob Hamilton was talking, and he said, there's that meme from the show The Office, and he says, "I wish there was something to the effect of, I wish there was a way for me to know that when I'm in the good old days." And Rob Hamilton said, it feels like maybe the good old days are kind of coming to a close because we're moving into this era of politicians are very well aware of Bitcoin. Whether they take a positive or negative approach to it is another matter, but they're aware of it. We've got BlackRock, we've got all these big players on board, and we've sort of passed like the speculative, cypherpunk early adopter stage and are moving into the mainstream. But I was if that's the way it's going to be, I was glad to be there for some of these historic speeches and get to meet some people at maybe this final juncture of Bitcoin's early days, so to speak.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, man. Like Snowden said, we are winning, but we haven't won. And I think his message was really keen on just don't become complacent. Like, don't take it for granted that that's it, it's finished now, we've won, and life's utopian. We're not there yet. So there's still a lot to do, and there's still a lot of people that have no idea what's going on. So imagine everything that we're doing now is revolving around that 1% that have a clue. We need to be ready for when the 99% finally, snap out of whatever coma they're in and realize that this is the answer they've been looking for their entire life, right? But again, this has to be done, intelligently, cautiously, so that nothing is given up again for the sake of, number go up or other silly things like this. That's Snowden's message. I think was the most powerful and important one at that entire conference. When he said don't marry your heroes, he's absolutely spot on. Bitcoin doesn't need any of these politicians. I mean, yeah, it's cool that they're finally here to talk about this. It shows that Bitcoin is winning, but we don't need them. They need Bitcoin, and Bitcoin reformats that entire mold, completely, and redefines the rules. In fact, Bitcoin is the rules. It just eliminates these corrupt rulers completely out of the equation. That's the world we need to ensure materializes, because without this, we're just going, in a circle, repeating the same mistakes of the past.
yeah, amen. Bob, you have any parting thoughts before we close up here?
No, I just appreciate you guys having me on. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great, it's great
Bob,
having you, Bob.
hey, Bob, is there, I know you're working on a book for that's going to sprinkle some Bitcoin wisdom into it, a fiction. Is there anything you want to share about that, or maybe that's just something we could share with our clients when it comes to completion?
Yeah, let's rain check on that. I want to get
Okay,
further down the road before I'm just talking about something that doesn't exist yet. But
perfect.
excited. I'm meeting with a guy Wednesday who's um made some movies too, some larger movies people might recognize if he was interested. So we'll see where it goes. It's just
Awesome.
stuff my wife can make fun of me for right now. So
Well,
I hope
exciting times.
I hope in 6 to 12 months we can have you back on and you could be sharing some more detail about it. So terrific. Bob, thank you so much for your time. Tony, great talking as always. And
Happy to be here, man.
yeah, hey, for anyone listening, appreciate you joining the show. If you need help with Bitcoin self-custody, securing your online life, plan B options when it comes to jurisdictional arbitrage, check out the bitcoinway.com/podcast. And we always appreciate you being here. All right, gentlemen, thank you guys. Cheers. And we'll talk again soon.
Peace out.
all right.
Bye.